Welcome to WinField United's Total Acre Live. I'm Ryan Wolf, Crop Protection Product Manager for South Dakota, North Dakota, and the Pacific Northwest.
And I'm Tyler Steinkamp, Crop Protection Manager for Iowa and Missouri.
And today, Tyler and I are going to talk about starting clean and staying clean throughout the season. And if you got any questions throughout this our little broadcast here today, please write them in the chat, and we'll answer those as soon as we get done today. But back to that starting clean and staying clean, I think a lot of people have been starting to think about spring already, as spring has sprung in some areas out there. But I think a lot of people are starting to think about supply more than actually weed control when you start thinking about it. We're worried about, are we going to get the glyphosate? Are we going to get the glufosinate? Are we going to get our 2,4-D? At what cost is this going to take us? Or do we have to ration product this year? Do we have to reduce rates? And we forget about weed control in general, and we're still fighting resistant weeds out there. And we need to start thinking about focusing on our end game out there too. And our end game ultimately is, what's the return on investment at the end of the year for us? And starting clean basically leads to higher yields. And I want to just reference this little piece of data here that started out with. This is some work done actually right across the border in Ontario, Canada. But I like the work it looks at, because it looks at corn, and corn yield compared to weed size is when it was controlled in that crop. And if you look on the left-hand side there, a weed-free crop means you started clean and you had weed-free throughout the season. We had about 204 bushels of corn. But if we waited to control those weeds, not up front, but waited until they were about 2 inches tall, or in this case, 5 centimeters out there, we lost about 5 bushels. Now, 5 bushels of corn, you're thinking, not a big deal. We probably wouldn't have seen that in the combine across that yield monitor maybe, but it's a big deal when you start thinking about economics. And then if you waited till 4-inch weeds, so you doubled that height, you lost about 16 bushels. So on the right-hand side there, you look at how many dollars per acre you lost if you waited to control those weeds at 2 inches tall. And that's around $27 to $30 per acre, depending on what the corn price is nowadays in your area. But $27 to $30 is a huge return on investment out there. That actually pays for some weed control programs out there. And then if you waited till, doubled that to 4 inches, we're looking at $80 to $100 per acre. And that is a lot of money left on the table. So starting clean in corn pays. And thinking about burn down as we go forward, starting that clean, I think we need to start thinking about burn down. And Tyler, does burn down pay?
I mean, that data would suggest it does, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, we look at soybeans here, and I think it's even more critical in soybeans as we look at burn downs and timing of that burn down. So this is some work done by Michigan State University's Christy Sprague, looking at about 8 locations here, looking at about timing of the burn down. And this is a little pet peeve of mine, because over the last 4 or 5 years, as we introduced, 2,4-D, dicamba traits into soybeans, I've seen a lot of growers back off that timing of that burn down application, actually to maybe even closer to in season. And really what we're doing is leaving money on the table at the end of the year. So this work looks at 7 days prior to planting. We're actually applying that burn down and killing all those weeds up front. And we had just under 60 bushel beans. If we waited until those beans were out of the ground, unifoliate to trifoliate out there, think about that. We lost 8.3 bushels per acre at that time. And at current prices of soybeans, that's close to $100 per acre that we lost, basically in about a 2 to 3 week window of controlling those weeds. And I think it's a huge thing to think about going forward, is starting clean with that burn down and the right timing of that burn down out there.
And not to mention, if you look at that picture, Ryan, you look off to the right, how hard is it going to be to control that mare's tail at that size?
It's at that size mare's tail, it's going to be almost impossible out there to control that mare's tail at that time. And then think about what that's going to do for your next season and the season to follow that. So just a question for you, Tyler. I mean, how does that weed control like that affect you to years to come?
Man, I mean, it makes a huge difference, guys. So often we look at just a singular year of our crop production and, hey, we got to get good weed control. Is a couple weeds out there is that really a big deal? It is, because you take a look, Ryan. I mean, you've seen this out in the field. A water hemp plant, a single water hemp plant can produce 500 to 1 million seeds per acre.
Yeah.
And so you can see how that would affect our overall crop protection cycle as we go forward. You got 1 million seeds more in that bank. Heck,
Off
in the
one
next
plant.
year, yeah, off one plant.
Yeah.
In the next year, you're going to see more and more. And by the way, some weed scientists, all they refer to a combine is as a really good weed spreader, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all that it really does is spread those weeds around. So we got some serious issues. So we need to do a good job of setting ourselves up. So we talked about starting clean, but we also need to stay clean. And guys, in the past, we've relied quite a bit on glyphosate and on our post-application to do that. But with some of these supply constraints, we need to make sure we're doing a really good job of managing that system. And instead of using those half rates, or what we used to call a foundation rate of a residual control product, guys, we need to use those fuller rates. Okay. I back in December, we did a Facebook Live event, and I talked about kind of an interesting way of looking at this, like it's a roller coaster, right? If you guys want to see that particular Facebook Live event, we'll have it down in the comment section here so you can click on it and watch it. But Ryan, what's more fun, a bunny hill or a big, tall roller coaster?
The longer, bigger, the better.
Yep, exactly. And that's the same for our residual control herbicides. If you think of it like a roller coaster, the longer your residual control is driven by how much of that herbicide you put out there. So if you think about full rates, it's going to make that hill so much higher. And Ryan, what makes a roller coaster even better?
Longer and faster.
Right? We got to have a second hill there. So going in with another residual control product post so that we can get ourselves to when that plant canopy takes over that weed control. Okay. Another thing, Ryan, you brought this up. Looking at this picture here shows you the effect that previous year management has as well. So here we got a half rate on the left, and over on the right, there's no foundation herbicide. But what's really interesting, if you look at this next picture, it's just looking at no foundation herbicide down. Look at the effect that our previous year management had on our weed control. So closest to you here, you have your full rate of a foundation herbicide. In previous years, we have a lot less weed pressure than we do compared to the half rate or even to no foundation herbicide in the past. And so using these fuller rates of residual herbicides are going to help us not only in this year, but also in years to come.
Yeah, that picture can say a lot right there, especially when you start looking at that back of that photo there.
Yes, definitely.
So that's great. I mean, we talked a little bit about starting clean and staying clean, and we're going to open it up for questions now. If there's any questions, please type them up in the chat there. But Tyler, I have a question for you little bit about, starting clean and staying clean. We never talked about an application of ferrous oxide. I think I've heard of that before. You talked about ferrous oxide. Tell us what about ferrous oxide treatment is.
Ferrous oxide is one of the best known or best kept secrets that we have, guys. And Ryan, I hear that one's not on supply constraint either.
Yeah, I bet it is. I bet it isn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Guys, if you haven't caught on, ferrous oxide's iron, right? So the more that you can, if you are planning a tillage pass, making sure we do a good tillage pass, make sure we completely kill those weeds out there, not just prepare the seed bed, right? But truly kill the weeds out there. Ferrous oxide tillage can do a really, really good job of helping us start clean.
Yeah, so it's not all about a chemical starting clean too. It isn't in no-till, but if you're in a conventional tillage situation, it's about ferrous oxide application and a heavy rate, I would say, of a ferrous oxide application out there then too, right? To control all those weeds up front.
Yep.
Okay. Another question we got out there is, what happens if I can't get the chemical or herbicide that I want this season?
Yeah, that one's definitely on a lot of people's minds as we go. There are other options that maybe we haven't tried in the past for conventional or for more conventional herbicides, some of those things. But realistically, we might have to have a plan B. We might have to have a plan C. Just make sure you have something in your plan that allows you to make some of those switches.
Well, I think the other part of that is a trusted advisor. I think you really need a trusted advisor this year, a trusted agronomist to help lead you and navigate through that way. Yep. It might be reducing rates but increasing rates of some other products here and there. Definitely about going to plan B, plan C, plan D. Some of us might be on plan E by now. We don't know, but I think it's about that trusted advisor and keeping yourself open out there for changes throughout the season, I think, as we go forward. So that's great out there. So I think that's all the questions I got for us. That's what happens if I can't get my burn down out there. So with that, I think thanks a lot for tuning in to Total Acre Live with us today. If you got any more questions or comments, please reach out to your local WinField United dealer or your local WinField United representative, or visit us on the web at winfieldunited.com. And thanks a lot. Have a great day.